Do you pay attention to the voice in your head, your inner dialogue? What does it sound like? Is it your biggest cheerleader or is it your nastiest critic? So I want you to stay tuned to the end if you want to find some helpful tools to take a big stop sign to the negative thoughts and get those shifted. And I am Erica, your host of Powered by Joy podcast. So welcome. If you're someone who feels stuck, frustrated with where they are in life, you don't feel like you have a lot of joy and happiness and ease in your life, we are on a quest to dive into ways we can bring that more into our lives through cleaning up some of our thought patterns and other things that we're going to talk about today. And we want to do all that without sacrificing our commitment to our family and our friends. No matter what, since about 2010, I've been practicing working on these sorts of things and those negative thoughts that were really affecting my daily life. So I'm going to share a little story time, a little history here. So back in 2010, being in real estate, I had recently divorced. So I was a single mom, and being in real estate, you don't have unemployment. And I had a lot of things, responsibilities. And so at this point, I had to let my house go through the divorce. I had to give my car back to the bank. I went through all the things. I depleted my savings. I couldn't find a job. I had no unemployment, supporting kids on my own. And it was a very challenging time emotionally and mentally and in my thought life. And I was given a book that I read in the middle of that, and I just grabbed onto that thing like a lifesaver in the rough seas. And it was The Principles of Success by Jack Canfield. And I found a lot of powerful things in there. That book is talking about how to shift from where you are to where you want to be. So highly recommend it. I'm going to put it in the show notes. And one of the things that I took out of that book that I've used, and I really think that was a game changer for me to claw my way out of that deep hole of negative thoughts that I had at the time, where I was just feeling no hope. I was super depressed. I had so much anxiety about how I was going to pay the bills, feed the boys, all the things, and like losing where we're living, things like that. Those thoughts and worries were going through my head all the time. And one of the things he talked about was your negative thoughts. And he said how important it is that we have positive thinking and gratitude, even when things are challenging, if we want to start seeing shifts in where we're at in our life. I'm like, how in the world am I going to do that? Because let me tell you, back in those days when I hadn't done a lot of self-work, I had a regular tape recorder in my head. That just shows my age. I had a regular loop in my mind of thoughts that I had every day that was just like this inner voice criticizing me as I went through my day. Oh, that was stupid. Oh, look at you doing that again. Oh, you never remember anything. Or you look so fat. Or look at how horrible your hair looks today. Or like, why did you say that? Why didn't you think of something smarter to say? I just like never stopped in the back of my head. It was literally nonstop. If I was awake, there was this little voice just kind of at me, just so cruel. And if anybody talked to my kids the way that I was talking to myself, I would have torn them apart. Let's just say that. So the fact that I allowed myself to talk to me like that took a lot of work to get out of that. But I'm going to share the steps that I took at the very beginning of my journey, because during that time, like, it was hard to find any life saver that I could just like not be in despair. And he talked about paying attention to your thoughts. And one of the ways he suggested doing that, and I've mentioned this in another episode, is putting a rubber band or like a hair band or a bracelet that has some elasticity on it. Put it on in the morning. Set an intention. You've heard me say this before. So step one is setting an intention to listen to your thoughts and putting that bracelet on or that rubber band on so that you have a physical reminder that you're going to start trying to listen to that voice, those thoughts. Okay. And then that's step one. We're listening for those thoughts and we're setting that intention in the morning. And then let's say we're trucking through our day, and you're like, I'm such an idiot. Oh, and you notice it. Okay, step two is acknowledging it. You've noticed it, right? You're like, I noticed I was just a total asshole to myself. I just criticized myself. Okay, and now what, right? Well, one of the things that we know is that if your subconscious doesn't align with like what you're consciously trying to believe, like that things are harder to change, right? So let's just say I'm like, I'm a millionaire. I'm a millionaire. I'm a millionaire. I'm a millionaire. My logical brain's like, no, you don't have $1,000,000 to spend today. So no, that's not true. So there's conflict. And then when that's not aligned and you're not, all parts of your brain are on the same page, guess what? You don't believe it. It doesn't change how you feel. It doesn't change your heart. It doesn't change your state of being. It doesn't change your emotional being, right? So step two is, you acknowledge it, you heard it. And if you have time and space, and you might not always, and that's okay, but when you do have time and you're maybe driving in the car and you have that thought of like, I'm such an idiot, I would like you to think about the fact that you, again, want to have something that's a believable, true statement that's actually love-based. And those negative thoughts that we have are usually fear-based. You can say it's anger, you can say it's anxiety, worry, but most all things end up when you pull all the cords and follow the string, it usually actually ends up in fear, because anger usually protects us when we feel fearful, right? So we're just following that string, right? And so if we're in that fearful place, it's hard to just jump to like, oh yeah, I feel great. But if we can stop and we're like, I acknowledge it. And why did I say that to myself in that moment? Why do I always say that to myself in this kind of moment? Getting that curiosity out. We talk about it in almost every single episode, like getting curious without judgment. Curiosity is not judgment and criticism. Curiosity is just asking questions and looking for answers, listening for answers and observing. And we're doing that without criticizing ourselves. So I'm going to give you a personal example. And this is a true example. So I'm going to show you, because the third step is shifting that thought to a more positive, true thought, right? So when we're in fear, we're usually believing untrue thoughts that aren't real. They're based out of fear. And so we're going to go over, and so let's say you're like really up a creek and you're really feeling negative. It's really hard to just jump right over to like, I love myself and this is such a loving thought, right? So I'm going to give you my example, but one of the things that I think is helpful is knowing that it's actually a process sometimes. Sometimes you can jump right over and go, oh, I had that. No, because if you have one that you repeat all the time, you can have a pre-prepared counter statement. So let's say you're like always saying, oh, I'm an idiot. I'm such an idiot. Why did I do that? And then you like, oh, okay. I'm just frustrated with myself right now because I'm tired. Okay. And then your pre-prepared thought that you always like when you know that you're like, oh, snap, I just caught it. Okay, where did that come from? All right. Now I'm going to be like, I always try really hard and I know I can always do better. Okay. That's not, I love myself and I'm not an idiot, or I'm so smart, I'm a genius. Like, no, let's just like move the needle, like move it off like it's dead. We're trying to bring it up just a little bit. So then your subconscious and your heart and your mind, they all are like, okay, yeah, I can buy that. All right, we'll shift to there. We're going to shift there. Okay. So next we're going to keep going, but we're going to stay on step 3, and I'm going to give you an example. So one would be like, let's say I wake up and I'm trying to get dressed and I'm not liking how I feel in any of my clothes. This is something I have said to myself countless times since I was very little. And that is, I'm so fat. Oh, and then I start going, so you can water the weed, right? or you can pull the weed and stop it. But let's just say that I watered the weed. So I'm so fat. I work out so hard. I never see any results. Why do I even try? I'm just going to eat whatever the fuck I want today. Fuck it. Like, I give up. This is so irritating. I'm now pissed and irritable, and I'm setting out of my day, and I'm just like not in a good headspace, right? Now, anybody who talks to me the day, I'm like sending out little darts because I'm pissed at myself because I don't feel good in my clothes because I feel fat. So, okay. So I feel so fat. I'm like, oh, I caught the thought, snap, like, or just, oh, I noticed it. So you don't have to always have that, but once you get into practice, you don't need to do it. You just know you're like, oh, shit, there's that negative. You could even name the voice that talks to you that way. You could be, I don't even know what name, but you could come up with a name. I've heard that suggestion of like naming that person, that voice in our head that's like, and going, oh, I hear you. No. So I am going to stop and go, where did that come from? Oh, I don't like how I feel, and I worry that I don't look good. And a lot of my value has been tied, my worth, my self-worth has been tied to feeling like I look good is important. And that's actually not true. Like, I bring value in all sorts of ways, not just my weight or my size. And so now I'm kind of bringing the needle up a little bit. Okay, that's where it came from. All right, thank you. And now my next thought's going to be, okay, what's a believable thought I can say right now to work my way towards a better thought? Okay, my first thought, okay, I appreciate that my body is strong. And so because my body's strong, I get to hold my grandkids. I get to hug them and play with them. Okay, I can buy that. Now my meter's up. Okay, all right, I'm feeling better. Like, yeah, I love that I'm strong and that it gives me the ability to have all sorts of fun hobbies. Okay, my meter's up a little bit more. Okay, you know what? I love that my body's so strong that I can help people. When someone needs to move, I was able to help my dad move because I am strong. That's awesome. All of a sudden, I'm like over here, I'm like, yeah, I love that I'm strong. I don't have to look a certain way. Like, I still have strength. I do exercise. I do work out, and it makes a difference. I am strong. Thank God I'm strong and physically capable, and I can help people and love on people. And then step 4 just kind of comes from there, because now I've like slammed the meter over here, right? I've worked me. I'm like, oh yeah, whatever. Yeah, oh, maybe, yeah, hell yeah. Okay, now let's just slap on the gratitude. So you can be like, I am so grateful that my body is so strong. It has nothing to do with size. I'm strong. I get to do so many things with my body because it's capable and strong. So the step 4 is, can you make that thought into a form of gratitude as well? Like, feel gratitude for that thing that is eating at you, right? So these are the main steps that I would encourage you to go through. So I wanted to give you a very specific example of how I like start over here and I kind of work my way over. And then my last step, step 5, is that you need to remember that this is a practice. And I like to say, and I've heard this from many people that I've learned from, it's about progress, not perfection. And this negative thoughts and like our thought life and like changing how we talk to ourselves and like changing our thoughts is a whole learning process. It's supposed to be for our whole lives. We're not supposed to all just be like, mastered it. I'm still good at that. I never have any negative thoughts. I'm so perfect. Like, life happens. We wake up and we're tired. Somebody's an asshole to us. Like, work goes crappy. A deal falls apart. You hurt yourself and injured yourself at the gym this morning. Like, stuff happens. But that voice, when crap goes wrong, that's just criticizing you and going, oh, this is your fault. Why everything goes wrong for you because you don't deserve better. You're so stupid. We gotta shut that shit down. Like, you need to be like, oh, I see you, next. And you know what? Don't judge yourself that you still have those thoughts pop up, because they do. I still have them. I started in 2010. It is 2020. 4, I still have to go, uh-oh, like I'm in that space. And we don't judge ourselves for that first reaction or first initial thought because we can't just like control that magically. What we are working on here is what's the second thought? So, I observed it, I caught it, I acknowledged it. What can I shift that to? Where did it come from? Where can I shift it to that's a little bit more believable and positive? Can I get it shifted over to a gratitude statement? Sometimes we can't. But if you just shifted the needle a little bit, it matters. So when I talk about step 5 being remember, it's a practice, I want to share something. So I always wear this necklace, this spiral. I don't know if you can see it or not very well. And one of the things I remember learning from Tony Robbins was 1%. If you can do something 1% better, if you're here, like, and I'm moving an inch, 1% of going a direction, like he talked about golf. Like if you hit it a foot out, it doesn't really matter what that 1% is. But when someone drives the ball out, I wish I could 250 yards. Let's say you drive that far, that 1% is like a big difference by the end, and it makes a big difference. Well, another example of that is this shape. And I like to think of this as we are going to have patterns and things that we personally get to enjoy learning and growing from if we choose to. And if you're working on that, so you will have things like you come up and you're like, I thought I worked on that and healed it, and I feel like I'm doing so much better. And here it is back again. Like I'm having those negative thoughts again. Where is this coming from? Well, here's your opportunity. So it circles back around. You're the same person, and it circles back around. It keeps circling back around in your life and coming back by. Well, if every time that this pattern or a similar situation or a similar pain point or life happening happens to you and it feels repetitive, if you show up 1%, that's not a lot. That's just getting the meter here. That's not slammed over to gratitude, just here. And you initially shift that thought and don't go down the weed hole of the shitty thoughts. And you're like, oh, okay, it came around again. It's that thought pattern. This sounds familiar. How can I catch it faster? And how can I shift my thoughts faster and get over to gratitude faster? And it gets easier and easier. So every time that thing comes back around, 1%, you expand. Your heart's expanding, your capacity for compassion with yourself is expanding. So that's why I love this spiral, because it reminds me, like, when something comes back up, don't beat myself up because it's a failure and I'm looking at the same lesson again. It's, oh, this is life. This is being alive. And so this is my chance to show up better in this same kind of scenario and show up better. Just even 1%. So maybe I don't speak out as harshly to myself. I'm like, maybe that first initial thought isn't like, oh, you're so stupid. Maybe the next time it's like, ooh, maybe that wasn't such a great choice. But it's 1% better. Or you catch yourself. Maybe that 1% is, instead of going, oh, that was so stupid of me, and then why did I do that? I'm always making mistakes, right? That's sliding off the wrong way. That's bringing in the spiral. But if you go the other direction and you make that, oh, I caught myself, and we're going over towards the gratitude on the spectrum, it starts expanding us. So instead of being frustrated because you still have negative thoughts, because you will, just don't even start to think that you're just going to magically not have this anymore. What happens is you begin to become faster at becoming aware of those thoughts happening, and you catch them faster, and you have those prepared thoughts, and you get practiced at going, oh yeah, and then talking to yourself over the gratitude, like the process happens faster. And so I like to think of it as a game. Like, instead of going, oh, I don't want to have negative thoughts anymore, I got to stop those, I got to put a lid on it, because that's just, you're going to have to be dead for that to stop. Or maybe you can live in a mountain with the monks or something. But if you're here living life day to day, you're not going to be able to stop those things. So the game I would propose and invite you to is using those 5 steps we talked about, and I will list them in the show notes as well. And that way you can review them if you want. But I would like you to, instead of going, oh, I had a negative thought today, you set the intentions to pay attention, but Can you just make it a game of how fast you catch yourself, or how often? But I think it's more important, how fast can you catch it and stop it and go, oh, whoop, I'm reeling in the happy thoughts, reeling it in. I'm going to bring it in. The faster, that's where you want to play with. Like, focus on how quickly, instead of trying to put a stop to it, or like getting mad because you keep having these thoughts. That's just not reality. So I hope that these 5 steps are actionable, and like you can really use them, and make a game of it. Keep it light maybe at first, but even if you sit and think about it and maybe you have some go-to criticisms that you know are really repetitive in your head, take some time, get out your journal and write out some prepared statements that you could believe, and just have a few ready, because it is helpful when you're like, oh yeah, I wasn't going to talk to myself that way. I said when I was so fat that I was going to focus on how strong or flexible my body's, or how much energy my body has. Like, have it ready. Do a little bit of prep work, because it will help you when those moments arise. So give yourself a little grace if there's a lot of passion involved in the moment and you react and it takes a little longer. That's okay. It's a practice. Just aim for 1% better, 1%. And I would love it if you could even share, if you're brave enough. I'm going to share a different example in my video on YouTube, and I'll even do it on my social media, but I'll share another example of like a negative thought and my positive, believable, true version that is a thought based in love. Because really we're trying to shift from fear-based thoughts and voice that's coming at us. We're shifting it to love and truth, and it is a process. So remember, it's a practice. Be gracious with yourselves. I'd love to see comments on if you don't want to share your negative thought, you can also share your pre-prepared, positive, loving thoughts in the comments. And if you're somebody who feels like they struggle with this a lot and you just want someone to help you kind of talk through them and maybe convert some of those thoughts and help you with that meter of like trying to talk it through to where it feels more real and believable, where you can sit in it and feel it to the point that you feel expanded and your heart feels better and you're not in that negative kind of closed in space and energy, I am happy to help you. You can go to the show notes and find a way to schedule a one-on-one with me if you are somebody who wants that real guidance, hands-on, to get in practice of this. And I hope that you share this with someone that you know that struggles with negative thoughts as well. And if you share, like, all the things, I super appreciate it. It means a lot to me. And thank you for joining me. I will see you next week, or you will hear from me next week. And again, on our quest for joy, thanks for joining me.